Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad.
Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are we all doing, everyone? Hopefully you've been okay, especially since the last episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. It was one of the biggest episodes that I've done, but it was definitely a fantastic show that we were able to bring out to you. And also, once again, I just want to give out a huge thanks to Logan Miller for coming back into the show and giving us an epic commentary on all the major things that have been announced at D23. It was just an all-around great time, and especially all-around great just getting back with the guy. Honestly, like, the connection that me and him we've had, like, you know, it's great to know that it's still as strong as ever to go and deliver some great commentary and some great content for you all, especially. So, great hearing from Logan again, and great to see that he's been doing all right with his life as well. But going back into this episode, believe it or not, the Disney discussions are not done yet, because Disney has still been making some major news ever since D23. But maybe not necessarily for the great reasons. Like, you would think that, oh, everybody is going to be so excited with what Disney has in store with stuff like Zootopia 2 and Incredibles 3 and The Villain's Land and all that kind of stuff. But oh no! So it was like immediately straight after D23, the rage against Disney grew even bigger. And we are going to get more into that a little later, but we also got some other news that we will get into. So with all that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I like to ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it, folks. Are you ready? Let's see. Are you actually ready? Oh, yep. I do see people are ready. That's great to see. Ooh, I love the enthusiasm that you all have. All right, so with that said, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first story that we have for you today, we are actually going to go into something a little bit unusual, something that is actually very rare in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, but something in the future that I do hope that we can get a lot of. Now, for the first segment of this episode, this is actually going to be a sponsored segment. Yes, I will be having a sponsor here, but don't worry, this is something that I did think for you all, that this will be something that you shall be interested to go and check out. This episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast is brought to you by Unscrewed. It all falls apart. This is going to be an upcoming cartoon-themed board game that already has a Kickstarter over here, and as you could tell, it is already very successful, so you know for a fact that it is going to be happening. But first, to know a little bit more info about what this is, we're going to be checking out the little trailer that is on the Kickstarter page. So let's go ahead and actually check this one out.
Hey there, little Billy.
Who are you?
Say, Sport, you love these cartoons, don't you?
Not really.
Sure you do. Well, little Timmy, what if I told you there was an exciting board game with all of your favorite cartoon characters in it?
My name is Oliver.
Introducing Unscrewed, a chaotic battle royale board game for 3 to 5 players about hatching a scheme and watching it go hilariously wrong. It's got all the classic characters: Slappy, Freddy Frady, the Mad Cow, Dr. Piddles, And my personal favorite, Mosquito.
But I've never heard of any of those characters.
Yes, you have, and you love them. In Unscrewed, players take control of these beloved, absolutely real, licensed characters in a televised fight to the death.
To the death?
Players will pre-plan a sequence of actions at the same time. Then, when everyone's locked in, the madness unfolds.
Why to the death?
These tunes don't like to share, Jimmy. Characters will displace each other, setting up crazy chain reactions.
I don't understand.
Featuring an entire improv deck of wacky, cartoonish attacks and unexpected surprises. And a deck of quirk cards that provide game-altering effects to the players unfortunate enough to end up with them.
Please stop.
Every card is unique, and the board shrinks every round, Johnny. The last one standing wins. Isn't that thrilling? Doesn't that make you want to find the nearest card-carrying family member you can to secure your copy now?
Help me! Someone, please!
Watch your step, sport. Hazards galore. Unscrewed. Back now on Kickstarter.
Yes, that is Unscrewed. At least the Kickstarter trailer to give you a little idea of what this game is about. And on top of that, by the way, I actually have a bit of a surprise for you all, because I actually am not alone right over here. Believe it or not, I actually have a surprise guest for you all, who is none other than the designer of the game Unscrewed. Please welcome to AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, Chris Cook. Chris, how you doing, dude?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're very welcome. And first off, I just want to say congratulations on the Kickstarter campaign and actually being pretty successful. It looks like there's been a lot of interest for Unscrewed and to bring the game to life.
Yeah, it's been really humbling, honestly. I've been working on this thing for like 6 years in my spare time after work every day and every weekend. And there was a lot of time where I was worried it wasn't going to fund at all or that nobody wanted it. And yeah, it was really nice to see that we funded. We actually hit our goal in the first 4 days. And we've just kind of been, it's slowed down quite a bit since. Usually there's a pretty big lull in the middle of Kickstarter, but no, I'm super grateful and I'm really excited. We have about 9 days left and we're just trying to raise a little more and get the game into more people's hands, basically. So
awesome. So the first question that I want to know is, have you previously actually made a board game before? Because I've noticed in your description that you have been working on video games for several years, but is this your first time actually working on a board game itself, or have you had previous experience on that?
no, so this is, other than maybe a school project that I did back in college that was not very good, this is my first board game. It was a big first for me. There's a ton of overlap, I think, between video game design and board game design, but it's also a totally different beast. So a lot of learning for sure.
All right, that's nice. But also, one thing that really caught my attention, of course, as an animation fan, is that this is all this big cartoon-themed board game. And on the Kickstarter, at least like under the main title, it says that it is a 90s cartoon-inspired battle royale board game. Could you explain which cartoons specifically were inspired to go and create Unscrewed?
Yeah, so the biggest inspiration by far was Ren and Stimpy. I'm a huge Ren and Stimpy fan. I always really liked that sort of aesthetic and that sort of gross undertone they always had with everything, right? They did the gross close-ups and you know, it's one of those shows where in hindsight you look back at it and you're like, should I have even been watching that for the age I was? And the answer is probably no, but it kind of has a soft or a special place in my heart because of that. And then there's some other influences. Like I say it's 90s cartoon inspired, but really there's it's kind of a love letter to a lot of cartoons. There's some Happy Tree Friends in there. There's some early SpongeBob in there, Courage the Cowardly Dog. And I describe the actual experience of playing the game as like Looney Tunes, right? Everyone sort of feels like Wile E. Coyote, where they have one thing in their head that they want to do, and then pretty much consistently that's not what actually happens. Some little thing goes wrong, and now the whole plan that you formed ahead of time has a totally new context that is not what you wanted, but it's funny and it's entertaining and you're laughing with your friends. So
All right, and I could tell even in the trailer, it does have some elements that are based on Ren and Stimpy, especially like with the guy trying to sell to the kid the game. I actually did notice a little bit of that, especially with some of the others, like with SpongeBob, and even though you didn't list it, like even some of the designs remind me a little bit also of Rocko's Modern Life a little bit. And
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that in a great way, by the way. Also. But also with the characters themselves, like you got a unique batch of characters, like with the Mad Cow and Mosquito and Freddy Frady and stuff. Do they also have any inspirations from actual cartoons, or are they just completely original characters that are made specifically with their own game strategies in mind?
Yeah, so it's interesting the way that I approached designing those characters initially. First off, I'll say that I had an idea for them, and then I had some very rough drawings that probably even my mom wouldn't hang on the fridge because they were so bad, that I then gave to my artist, and he really brought the characters to life, so I can't take credit for all of it, but I did start from a place of breaking out the different player types that I wanted to accommodate. I think that's really important in design, right? So, you have the person who wants to be really aggressive. You have the person who wants to hide from everybody. You have the person who just is there to do something crazy. And those are all informed by the type of game, right? It's a battle royale, so that helped me narrow it down. But once I had those, I sort of started to come up with character designs that I thought would fit that really well, because I wanted their mechanics and their theme to sort of tie in really well. So, for example, Freddy Frady, heavy influence from Courage the Cowardly Dog, of course, for his personality, and then a little bit of Gossamer, right, from Looney Tunes. He looks a lot like Gossamer, so that was sort of a big thing. Actually, one of the early versions of him we did looked too much like Gossamer, and we ended up changing him because I was worried I was going to get a cease and desist letter.
Yeah, those copyrights. Trust me, as a YouTuber, I know the fears of copyrights.
Yes, yeah. And then Slappy is a little bit SpongeBob, a little bit Bugs Bunny, a little bit Tasmanian Devil. Dr. Piddles is a little bit Pinky in the Brain, a little bit Dexter's Lab. Honestly, I think the only one that I can't really draw a direct comparison to another character with is Mo. Mo was kind of a weird, fully formed idea that we had collectively, and maybe there is something in my subconscious from a cartoon I'm not actively remembering that inspired him, but yeah, he's probably the most purely original one out of the bunch.
All right. And there's one that I don't know if you've listed. Did you mention the Mad Cow, like any of his inspirations?
No, sorry. He's kind of the Ren and Stimpy character, and then somebody in the chat even said Cow and Chicken. Very big influence there. I mean, Cow and Cow is obviously pretty easy comparison to make, but yeah, he's sort of the most Ren and Stimpy-esque character that we have.
All right, I understand. Oh my god, yeah. I'm glad you even brought up some inspiration of Cow and Chicken. I love that cartoon. Oh my god. Yeah. But also for the game itself, I understand with the theme of cartoons that it brings in so much chaos. How are you able to bring the idea of battle royale onto a board game? Because like when you think of the term battle royale, like you would commonly think of recent video games, you would think of Fortnite or Fall Guys and stuff like that. How are you able to take those mechanics and you would bring that to a board game in order to emulate that kind of chaos, into something that you could bring in onto tabletop?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So the way that I personally approach design is I don't really tend to try to emulate another game first. So for example, the battle royale elements of this game were actually a solution to an experience that I was trying to recreate, right? I knew that I wanted this crazy cartoon feeling. I wanted you to feel like Wile E. Coyote. I wanted you to be laughing with your friends and being surprised by things happening very quickly. And Battle Royale just fell really neatly into place there, right? Because in a lot of board games, you gain points, and the person at the end of the game the person who wins at the end of the game is the person that has the most points. And while a very effective tool in a lot of games, and it's very compelling, it can sometimes be very easy to tell who's going to win with mechanics that are points-based, right? So the cool thing about Battle Royale is when it's last one standing and anyone can die at any second, you really don't know who's going to win until somebody wins, right? And I like how exciting that is. And then the other Battle Royale element, of course, as you saw in the trailer there, is the board shrinking thing with the rings. I literally have people all the time try the game and say, oh, just like Fortnite. And again, I wasn't trying to copy Fortnite, but it just works so well for the game, right? It really keeps things tense, and it ramps up the pressure every round, and it keeps the play time at a nice, consistent level. So.
Oh, that actually sounds exciting. It honestly brings me back to my times like when I would play Mario Party with my friends. Like especially in terms of that unpredictability, like you never know who's going to win, and there is still that luck factor in terms of like, okay, who's going to end up winning, who's going to end up getting screwed over. Like, would you say it's a little bit like that?
100%, yeah, and that's really what we were going for. To the point where I actually really struggled a lot because there were some folks who play tested it who really weren't into that kind of thing. That's not the kind of experience they're looking for. And like I mentioned before, this is my first board game, so the confidence to say, oh no, this is definitely what it has to be, can be a little hard to stick to when you have people playing the game and saying like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could strategize a little more and if there's a little less randomness, right? And thankfully I found enough people who did like sort of the essence of the game that I could kind of lean the game into being for them rather than sort of changing it for people who weren't on board with it. But yeah, that's an eternal struggle, right? You want to make something a lot of people play, but you want to stick to a vision too, right? That's what being creative is all about.
Nah, of course. Now, with your Kickstarter, like already you managed to make it into a big hit. But now you are at the point where you want to go and build onto the stretch goals. And if I look into the Kickstarter campaign, you only listed one new stretch goal, which I believe you've already crossed, that you're going to add a new double-sided board to the game, but you may have some more coming soon that you have yet to reveal. Is it okay if you could go and tell us what ideas you may have for some stretch goals? Like if the people who are watching this right now or listening to this, they want to go and donate to the Unscrewed Kickstarter and help out with the stretch goals, what more will they get other than the board game itself?
Yeah, awesome question. So technically we haven't quite hit that first stretch goal yet. It's a little confusing. The project is in CAD, but that list is in USD. So we're about 20 backers or so away from hitting the first stretch goal. So I'm very excited. I'm hoping that'll happen soon. But basically, I really am not a fan of when people who do Kickstarters capitalize on the FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. So I didn't want to do a whole bunch of Kickstarter exclusives and things that somebody who might fall in love with the game a year from now could just never get again. So to that effect, everything that is included in the base game is really all of the best stuff. We didn't make a whole bunch of awesome stuff and then remove it on purpose just to add it later. But that being said, we do have some extra boards. Like you saw, that one is there. There is a couple more peppered throughout there, and they add so much replayability. Like just a new configuration of hazards to play with can give you a whole new outlook on the game. And then otherwise, it's mostly just upgrades to make the game feel a lot better and to look a lot better on your shelf, right? So, for example, the second one, I can give a teaser here, is something that makes the sort of quality of holding all the pieces together in the box a lot nicer than some of the other games might have, for example. So
Okay. And I guess at this point, like I'm sure there are going to be some people who will ask, but I might as well get this out of the way. Would you do you have any new characters in mind for like an upcoming expansion?
Yeah, I do have ideas, actually. I've just only recently started letting myself think about that once we hit the funding goal, because you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. But yeah, I have some thoughts about some characters. I think a clown would be really fun, like a clown that's kind of a jerk and he's all about maybe putting traps around on the board could be an interesting player archetype that's not represented yet. Okay. And then very loose ideas for maybe a character who's really tired all the time, and what does that look like? Like maybe he's asleep and awake and that changes his mechanics depending on what state he's in, something like that. And then something I would really love to look into, I don't know how feasible this is yet, but with one Kickstarter under our belt, I wanted to reach out and see what the licensing looks like for Happy Tree Friends, because if I could do a Happy Tree Friends expansion, I would really love that, to actually have the characters as playable in the game. I think they'd fit so well.
Oh, I could see that. Like, and especially if you open the door to actually having licensing, and then you could have like special editions of like Looney Tunes or Nicktoons. Like, I could see the great potential in that.
Absolutely. I mean, the problem with stuff like Looney Tunes or like Ren and Stimpy, who are my go-to that I would want to put in if I could get a licensed character, is the cost is prohibitive for somebody as small as I am. And then the other thing is just I don't know that the people who own Wile E. Coyote are going to be interested in seeing him get sucked into a fan and have his blood sprayed out, right? Maybe they are, but that's always the hurdle with licensing, is they only want their characters portrayed in a certain way. So
I mean, to be fair, it's Warner Brothers. They're already doing that as we speak. Have you seen? You saw what happened with Coyote versus Acme. That's basically what happened.
That's true. Yeah, no, that's true.
Yes. So But now I want to go and ask the chat wall if you guys have any questions for Chris in regards to Unscrewed. Now is the time that you could go and ask if you'd like to have any more info in regards to the board game. So, and does anybody have any questions? Anything you would like to know more about the game? Just to go and double check. It'll take a little time, probably. Let's see. No. Well, one just flat out says no. Oh, okay. Let's see. It's not every day that we would have a sponsored segment on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, but I must say the trailer is chaotic and hilarious. I really like the idea of a board game paying homage to the wacky cartoons from the 90s. I'm already starting to fall in love with Dr. Piddles because I love poodles. But yeah, Unscrewed sounds like it could be a really fun game to play, especially for animation fans. Hope this Kickstarter goes well. Well, I mean, it's already going well. It's just, is it going to go better? Is there other characters to play as? I guess for now you only have the 5 in mind.
Just the 5, yeah, for the base game. But they do have totally different abilities, so they do have unique play styles. So you can mix it up with them, and then certain characters are better or worse on certain boards. So there's a lot of variety there.
Actually, someone is wondering, is it like Mousetrap?
Yeah, I see that actually too. They said, is it like D&D or is it like Mousetrap? It's definitely more like Mousetrap than D&D. I like to think it's a lot more interesting than Mousetrap because Mousetrap is really just about waiting to build the thing and then watching it fall on somebody. So yeah, not like D&D. You're not necessarily role playing, although some people do get pretty into it. I see people play as Slappy and start like yelling at the person they've chosen to be their friend while they chase them around. But no, it's you take turns and games are about 10, 15, 20 minutes long and there's a winner at the end and then you can pack it up and put it away or you can do another round if you want to.
Okay. So that's definitely awesome. Now there is one that is asking, do you have any other ideas do you have other ideas like this in the future? Maybe not necessarily with Unscrewed itself, but maybe other ideas in terms of like other board games or any other like ideas similar to have it be cartoon themed?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I try not to get too ahead of myself, like I alluded to earlier, because it's important to focus when you're trying to finish a project. But I do have ideas. Whether or not those ideas will make it, I don't know, right? A huge part of game design in general is iterating, and so you make something playable that you think is awesome in your head, and then you get people to sit and play it, and then it's actually terrible, and you decide how terrible it is, and if it's worth trying to fix it and make it not terrible. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is, oh, this was just a terrible idea. I should make something else.
Yeah, no, I understand how that is. Someone asked, this is an interesting one. I have one question. When you made it to your goal, are you going to put it online or in store?
Yeah, so actually, we're quite small right now, and we've set our goal to be pretty humble for the most part. Like, it's enough to make 500 copies, which is the minimum order run. But I don't have any distribution plans right away. I would like to get it in store one day, of course. But for now, if you really like the game, Kickstarter is probably the only way you're going to be able to get it for the foreseeable future. But there are some stores that I know of that have backed, and they're going to get maybe a dozen copies or so. And so if you happen to live in a city that gets some into their store, then you could potentially see it there. But it's not like it'll be on every shelf of every store you go into or anything like that. Like I said, would love to get there, but just starting out small for now and really trying to build it up slowly.
Okay. No, that's definitely fair. One proposed an idea for a collaboration if you would do an Unscrewed version of Bendy and the Ink Machine, or the reverse of Bendy and the Ink Machine version of Unscrewed.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that before. I'll look into that for sure. That would be a really good fit.
Yeah, definitely. Like with the retro cartoon style, and like they can be as violent, so I mean it works out.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's another comment and question here. I gotta give it a very zany idea. I'll say though, I haven't played board games in years. Heck, who even plays board games now? Not to make it an insult. It's just a fact. It does look like fun, almost like, say, Sorry and Mousetrap in a toonish way. If I have any questions, if this does become popular, could this have the potential to become a video game, kind of like a PS2 edition of a family game night?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of game that's all about watching funny things occur as a result of your choices. So I think it would be pretty easy to translate into video games. I guess it would just depend on how many people are interested in seeing that, right? I mean, maybe if the board game does fairly well, that's something I could look at for sure. Yeah, I work in video games, so I know a little bit of my way around there. That's something I could probably put together. I hadn't really thought about it, honestly. That's interesting to think about.
Definitely. And there is one more question here. What kind of attacks are they? Like, is there like a variety of attacks that these characters do?
Yeah, so essentially the game is a programmed action game, which means unlike in a lot of other games where you're doing one thing at a time, turn by turn, everyone actually simultaneously plans 3 turns in advance. And the way they do that is by taking their hand of action cards, which are the actions you have available, and you lay them face down on the board that comes with your character. It's called your scheme board, and you're forming your scheme by laying your actions down. And then once everybody has laid those actions down and formed their schemes are locked in and they can't change them anymore. And so then you kind of go in a circle and you start watching turn by turn what everyone did, and you see it play out now that it's too late to do anything about it. The actions you have are mostly movement. There are 4 compass signs at the edges of the board, northeast, south, and west. And so there's a northeast, south, and west card accordingly that moves your character 1 space in that direction. There is an again card that repeats whatever card came right before it in the scheme. And then there's an improvised card that makes you draw from the improv deck, which is where attacks live. There is sort of 2/3 attack cards and 1/3 surprise cards, they're called. Attack cards are essentially aimable cards that show a grid and a weird shape that you try to line up on the board to hit other people and disrupt them. And then surprise cards are like a chaotic event that just goes off and does something crazy and probably bad for everybody most of the time. And then whatever you draw, you use it right away and you discard it.
All right, nice. Okay, so with that said, thank you so much, Chris, for being here and to take the time to chat with us about Unscrewed.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate the time. And if anyone is interested or likes the sound of it, please go check it out. Share it with anyone you think would get a kick out of it. It would mean a lot to me.
Hey, no problem. And if you are interested in donating to the Kickstarter campaign and want to get a copy of Unscrewed, then again, just go to Kickstarter and look up Unscrewed. It all falls apart. So thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, so with that said and done, it is now time that we are going to go on to our first break. And when we do come back, we will get into the actual stories that we shall be talking about. And the first one we will get into is actually going to be a very unusual move. Barbie will be coming back to the big screen, but not in the way that you may think. Apparently, she might get the help of the minions to do so. All right, we're back. So now that we are in the actual portion of the episode where we will be talking about some animation news and some wild entertainment news that's been going on during the week, the one that we have over here, we're going to go and discuss about Barbie. Now, it's been over a year since Warner Brothers released the billion-dollar hit starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, and it definitely was a fun-filled feature. It really was like something in which where the Lego movie walked, Barbie just ran with it. It was one of those that, like, you wouldn't think a Barbie movie would be this extravagant, this thought-provoking, and this hilarious, and yet here we are right now. Definitely one of the most memorable movies of 2023. But it looks like Barbie might be coming back to the big screen soon, but not necessarily in the way that you may think. It's not going to be with Margot Robbie, it's not going to be with Greta Gerwig, and it's not even going to be with Warner Brothers. But rather, it's actually going to be not just fully animated, but with Illumination. Yes, reports recently came out that Mattel is currently in talks with Illumination to potentially create a fully animated Barbie movie that will be made for the big screen. Now, keep in mind that there's not a lot of information that came out of it. Like, we're still in, like, very early stages of this production, if it is even going to happen in the first place. It's just so far a bunch of ideas that are being exchanged with one another that maybe this could happen. But to give you more info on what is happening behind the scenes, allow me to go and read to you what is said here on my source on Animation Magazine, in which it states right over here, according to Matthew Baloney's Puck newsletter, a fully animated flick would not impact a potential live-action Barbie sequel or Ken spin-off from Warner Bros. Pictures, as Mattel retains animation rights. According to the report, Gerwin and Robbie are not thrilled by these plans. So essentially, the original people behind the 2023 Barbie movie with Greta Gerwin and Margot Robbie, they are aware that this is potentially happening, and they're not necessarily happy, because if it's going to be done by Illumination, then it's going to be something that is completely different than what we're getting, or what we just got with the 2023 film. But that is the big news with all this, is the fact that Mattel is probably talking to Illumination in order to go and make a fully animated Barbie movie. But not just any Barbie movie that we've recently been getting that would just be out on Netflix or directly on DVD or something like that. It would be like fully released in theaters, like a big screen Barbie animated adventure. Now, first and foremost, I might as well go and address the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that Mattel is immediately jumping ship from Warner Brothers to Universal, or more specifically to Illumination. It's kind of like a very fast-forward version of what we have witnessed with Lego's relationship with Warner Brothers, where in 2019, after the Lego Movie 2 bombed, Legos decided that they're going to break up with Warner Brothers and then move directly to Universal in order to make movies and other projects with them. And we're already starting to see the result of that with Piece by Piece, the Pharrell Williams biography that is going to be coming soon. So maybe Mattel is kind of doing the same thing with what we have seen with Legos and stuff like that, but they're not going to wait until a sequel would just bomb and they're just going to go and fast forward into that. But that is not necessarily the case here. It is true that when it comes to the rights of Barbie, what is considered animation and what is considered a live action production like the 2023 film are completely different. So technically, Mattel does have a reason why they would go and want to keep that separate, and that they would technically be allowed to go to one company and another for those two different things. Now, you might be wondering, why is it that after the big success that they had with Warner Brothers, why not stick with Warner Brothers? You know, why not actually stick with them in order to go and produce an animated feature with Warner Brothers Animation Studios instead of Illumination? There's a part of that that doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, it's understandable that Greta Gerwin and Margot Robbie are not happy with this news, but the ones who should be the most upset with is Warner Brothers. If they really want to go and turn Barbie into this massive movie franchise, wouldn't they want to also go and produce animated features as well, that they can keep Margot Robbie the same way that they're keeping her to be as Harley Quinn, or that they had for several years? Like, wouldn't they want to go and actually do that? But then again, the more I would think about it, there's one piece that honestly, it makes sense, and it only makes sense because we are talking about this one company. It's Warner Brothers. And in the current state that they are right now, especially with the way that they have been treating their animated features and their animated projects and just their animation division in general, it wouldn't be as likely if they would go and actually produce a Barbie movie with them. Like, if an animated Barbie movie that would be released in theaters would actually happen, it would make more sense to go with Illumination, just on the basis that it would most likely be made with them, and it would most likely become a hit with them. So it's kind of like a safer bet than going with Warner Brothers. So in that regard, it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And some people even brought up an example I see in this chat wall. Another example is regarding Fixed, where originally, even though it is a Sony animation movie, it would have been distributed by Warner Brothers, but just recently, Warner Brothers decided that they're going to save money and not distribute Fix, in which the rights went back onto Sony Pictures. And rather if that's going to actually be released by Sony or what they're going to do with it, that remains to be seen. But that is another example as to why Warner Brothers should not necessarily be trusted when it comes to handling the distribution or even handling the production of an animated feature. You know, if it were any other studio, like if it were like the Barbie movie was released by Disney and then suddenly the Mattel wants Illumination to go and do the animated film, that would make no sense. But in the context that it is Warner Brothers, it's like, yeah, okay, you know what? I get it. It doesn't seem to make sense on the surface, but then when you know who's involved, it's like, okay, you can have this one. I get it if you want to go with Illumination. But I gotta say, when I did see this news of a potential animated Barbie movie by Illumination, there was one person that I really want to know their thoughts on. One person that, after seeing this news, I wrote them an email to ask what do they think about this entire situation, and that is Rachel Wagner. You all probably know Rachel from Rachel's Reviews. She has often been a guest here on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. I have collaborated with her on some of her videos, and I know that she is a major fan when it comes to Barbie-related media. Like, she is probably the biggest expert that I know in terms of Barbie movies, especially all the animated ones. In fact, on her YouTube channel, she actually made a whole video where she would rank all the animated Barbie movies. So immediately, I went to go and ask her opinion on what she thinks about the potential idea of an Illumination Barbie movie. And especially, I do know that she does have some mixed opinions when it comes to Illumination as well. And she responded to me that even though she is not warmed, she doesn't really like the idea that it's Illumination that's doing it. She is in support that another animation studio, even if it is Illumination, that they would go and make the Barbie animated movies now. Especially when, right now, the recent batch of animated Barbie films, according to her, they absolutely suck. The ones that have been released on Netflix recently, apparently they've just not been good. Like, one after another, the quality has just been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And she is hoping that maybe with this new take on Barbie, that it would bring the quality back like how it used to be with some of the older films. Because, believe it or not, according to Rachel, there have been some in which have been pretty underrated. Like, there are those that she actually fairly enjoyed as an animated feature, that the quality would legitimately match up to the animated features that would be released in theaters at the time. And she even added that maybe, like, if this would happen, that she would give the original voice of Barbie, who had been lending her voice in several of these older animated features, that she could go and make a cameo onto the Illumination movie. Kind of like the same way as the voice of Peach or Princess Toadstool in the Super Mario Brothers movie made a cameo in that feature, like right at the beginning. So that could actually be a possibility. And in my opinion, when I saw this news, I honestly thought that this is honestly intriguing. And like, there is a part of me that is a little bit mixed, but I do kind of want to see this happen. Because on one hand, there is a part of me that's not really that excited, because let's be honest, that 2023 Barbie movie was phenomenal. it would be extremely difficult for any studio to go and match up the achievement of what Greta Gerwig and her team was able to go and do with this. And as much as I do like Illumination, I highly doubt if they would be able to go and actually achieve that. If they can go and actually create something that would even be on par with Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie. So in that regards, like, I'm a little iffy on that. But then again, I would argue that if Illumination would go and do this, then this would be a very interesting challenge, because this would actually really make them try to think outside of the box and go outside of their comfort zone. That they would have no choice but to create something that would be a little bit different than the types of animated films that they would regularly make. And that is especially the case with the animation. I think it is suffice to say that we're not going to see Eric Guillon suddenly come in again to go and do his usual designs that he would implement on many of the Illumination films, like with the Despicable Me franchise, or The Secret Life of Pets, or even Sing. I cannot imagine that they would take characters like Barbie and suddenly turn her into a Despicable Me character, like someone who would fit in that same world as Gru and the Minions and all that kind of stuff. I would highly doubt if they would go and actually do so. So, at the very least, at best, I am thinking that maybe they could do something that would be more in the veins of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Something that maybe it would not necessarily be the best movie, but it would definitely be something that would pay homage to what the toy is about. And maybe in a more different way than what we got with the Greta Gerwig movie. I mean, I'm sure, like, creatively, it's going to be extremely difficult, especially next to impossible, to avoid the comparisons to that feature. But still, though, at least we will have a different way to go and honor how Barbie is going to be, or like what made people love Barbie so much over the decades. But then again, I'm just being like, that's just my enthusiast side. Like, I'm just being enthusiastic about the potential idea if this does happen. Still though, I feel like this is one of those news that it feels very unexpected. Like, you would never guess that at some point in the future, Illumination is going to make a Barbie movie, especially after the 2023 feature. Excuse me for a sec. I just felt that cough coming, but I just needed a good time to let it out. Like, you would never guess that, but honestly, it's a part of me where I feel like it is such a weird idea. I kind of see where it's gonna go. I don't know if it's actually going to be amazing, if it's going to turn out to be like one of the best movies from the studio, or maybe it could turn out to at least creatively be a flop, but still, it is an interesting idea to see what direction Illumination is going to take with it. So, with that said, now I would like to go onto the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you think about the potential idea of Illumination making a Barbie movie? Do you guys think it's a great idea that could really spice up the franchise, and especially spice up the studio as well? Do you think this is actually a bad idea and Mattel should go with another company to make an animated Barbie movie? Let me know what you think. Alright, so let's see what we got here. For me, I definitely feel very conflicted. On one hand, it's going to be extremely hard to match up with the quality of the 2023 movie, but I do hope Illumination can definitely do something different compared to the live-action movie. And honestly, I don't blame Mattel going with Universal instead of Warner Brothers, considering their track record with the way they treat animation. No wonder they want nothing to do with that. Yeah, again, like, if it were any other studio, you would be raising a lot of questions. But the fact that it's Warner Brothers, it's really one of those things that's like, yeah, say no more. I think I got enough explanations right over there with just those two words. Let's see now. Warner Brothers made a movie out of Barbie, and now Illumination wants to make a product out of Barbie. I don't want to compare apples to oranges, but the orange already sounds like it's mushy, rotten, and being devoured by maggots. If Mattel wants to make an animated Barbie movie, why not continue their relationship with Warner Brothers? I just answered my own question, didn't I? Exactly. Oh well, maybe this will convince Hasbro to make an animated G.I. Joe movie with Disney. With Disney? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really see G.I. Joe with Disney. I mean, then again, I could totally be wrong. I mean, last week they just announced that Disney is going to be making a Monster Jam movie with Dwayne Johnson. So why the fridge not G.I. Joe? Okay, let's see what else we got here. I feel like this isn't a good idea. I love the Barbie movie and had a blast watching it with my family during Christmas last year. However, I feel like making an animated Barbie so soon, it's a cash grab, plain and simple. I think there is potential for an animated Barbie movie. Illumination, however, I think they should get character designs from girly shows of the 2000s, like Winx Club and Trolls from 2005, not the Trolls movie from DreamWorks. Give it the same kind of design and care as Mario. Yeah, exactly. I honestly, I trust Illumination will go in a different route. I mean, like, we saw how they collaborated with Nintendo in order to make Mario. I'm sure the same is going to happen with Barbie. At least that's just in terms of the animation. Like, Barbie is going to look more like Barbie. Like, we're not suddenly going to see, like, Lucy somehow become blonde and then we have to expect that we're going to call her Barbie. You know, it ain't going to be like that at all. Let's see. What other comments do we have here? In hindsight, there is some potential for another movie, but seriously, it's all ready to be an animated film. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad idea. I just think it's a little too soon. We already have a heck of an amazing film. This is like an uncalled reboot, not to mention a little late considering the toy films from 2019. But to get the negative out of the way, since I trust Illumination more than Warner Brothers, I could say this might be a fun feature, like some recreation of the memes from Dreamhouse. Maybe. We could see what ideas they can go with. Let's see what other comments would we have here. I'm not a Barbie fan and I never saw this movie, but you brought up a point about how this could give Illumination a chance to try a different style with their filmmaking, and I think this has some potential to live up to the 2023 movie. I think Barbie fans will enjoy this if this response is true. Also, what do you think of the day the Earth blew up finding a distributor? Ah, yes, I did see this happened a few weeks ago, that the day the Earth blew up actually did find a North American distributor. Now, it is like a relatively small company, or at least smaller compared to the Hollywood ones, like, I think it's called, like, Catch-Up Distribution or something like that. But still, though, at least it is something, and I do hope that they will do the best they can to go and distribute it as much as possible in different theaters, because if it is just going to be like small batches, like, you know, like very limited screenings, then honestly it won't be as fun. But you know, I am hoping that, and also I'm just thinking, for the sake of like reviews and stuff like that, do not release it this year. Save it for 2025. I think it is safe to say that when it comes to animated films, it is already packed up from the end of November all the way down to December. We already got more than enough animated features. And if you don't want the day the Earth blew up get overcrowded and get overshadowed by whatever it may be, like Moana 2 or Lord of the Rings or Mufasa or what have you, put it out somewhere in 2025. I am just saying. It'll save me the headaches during the holiday season. Alright, what else do we have? I think I'll read 2 more comments and then we're going to go on to our next break. Alright, let's see now. I never thought Illumination would want to make a Barbie movie, but here we are. While I do think it's out of the blue and weird, it does make sense when you think that Universal distributes many direct-to-video Barbie movies. Me and my little sister actually own a few DVDs as a kid, and not gonna lie, the old ones are entertaining, and we really enjoy Barbie Life in the Dream House. I'm sure that Illumination's Barbie be no 2023 movie, but I hope it can be fun. Oh, well, there you go. Hey, at least we got some input from people who actually have seen some of the animated Barbie movies. Let's see, what else do we have? One more comment, and okay, I've seen this one pop up from time to time. This Barbie movie is from the creators of the Mario movie, and the people of the 2023 film is going to be all right. It's also, I know for a fact that Universal Pictures is going to be involved. They got Mattel signed a long-term deal or contract extension with Netflix for the pre-2017 films. Mattel is getting their act together when All Engines Go show premiered, and fans get so angry about it. Oh, All Engines Go. Oh, the Thomas the Tank thing. Okay, now I understand. Also, AniMat, have you been seeing any of the Barbie direct-to-video movies from the 2000s, good or bad? Honestly, I have never seen any of them, and that's why I'm saying that if you want to know a lot more info, go to Rachel. Go to the Rachel Reviews YouTube channel. I know I already did a sponsored plug, but this is one that, now this is just me saying that you need to go and check out Rachel's reviews and listen to her talk about the Barbie movies if you want to know more about them. I have not yet seen any of them. Maybe it'll happen one day with some of my reviews, but for now, I can only say that no, I haven't seen any of those animated Barbie movies. All right, so with that said, we're going to go on to our next break. And then the true chaos begins when we're going to be entering onto some Disney news. And we are going to go and answer the question, why the fridge is Disney being labeled as an evil company recently? What the fridge is going on with that? All right, so moving on to our next story. I just got to say that I understand that at least one of the biggest news that came out of D23 last weekend is the fact that they are going to be opening a Villain's Land in the Magic Kingdom. That everybody is excited to go into an area that is filled with Disney villainy. What we did not expect, however, is that Disney would suddenly be in the mood to do a little bit of method acting. You know, that if they want, if they're going to go and bring out a villain-themed area, they got to go and become the villain. Or maybe it's to also go and prep up for the Halloween season to go and let out all the villainy in there. But we just want the villainy from the villains. That doesn't mean that we want the villainy from the company. And that is especially the case from what we have seen with the Disney Plus lawsuit. Or there's been a lot of different names for this specific lawsuit. Some people are calling it the Disney wrongful death lawsuit, the Disney Plus lawsuit, the Disney arbitration lawsuit, and so much more. But the main thing here is that this lawsuit is causing a lot of controversy for the Walt Disney Company. So what the fridge happened here? Well, unfortunately, there is a little bit of a sad tale that did occur. Earlier in the year, there was a couple who went to Walt Disney World, and they went into one of the restaurants. Specifically, it was the Raglan Road Irish Pub and Restaurant at Disney Springs in Walt Disney World. And the woman, in this case, she would go and ask if any of the food would have any nuts in it, considering that she does have a nut allergy. And in that regard, the restaurant would go and tell her, no, everything should be fine. You can eat whatever you like. Or maybe not necessarily eat whatever you like, but just assured her that whatever she was going to go and eat, well, there wouldn't be nuts in it. Well, guess what? Unfortunately, there were nuts in it, and the woman had a severe allergic reaction and sadly passed away as a result. And because of this, her husband, specifically Jeffery Piccolo, decided to go and file a lawsuit on not just the restaurant, but also towards the Walt Disney Company. However, news reported that with this lawsuit, Disney is ready to go and take action by trying to say that they want this thing to be dismissed. Why? Because he agreed on a contract, or not necessarily a contract, but he agreed to the terms of use for Disney Plus. Yes, I'm just going to go and quickly read you here from my source here on NBC News, in which it is stated over here, Disney filed court documents in May saying the $50,000 lawsuit should be dismissed and resolved by individual arbitration because of the terms Piccolo agreed to when he signed up for a free trial on the streaming service Disney Plus. The filing also says he accepted the same terms when he used the Walt Disney Parks website to buy a ticket. Lawyers for the company said that the use to have the selected checkboxes that hyperlink to the terms of use, as well as others that say they agree to the terms, users cannot select agree and continue if the boxes are not checked, the filing says. So yeah, but what specifically does it say? Where the fridge does it say in that term of use? Well, it says just in the bottom over here, the filing included a copy of its terms and conditions. A section titled Disney's Terms of Use says that any dispute between you and us, except for small claims, is subjected to a class action waiver and must be resolved by individual binding arbitration. And that is the major thing that is going on. The reason why you see social media just enraged as to what has been going on with Disney, especially with this lawsuit, that because of the terms that the guy technically agreed when he signed onto Disney Plus, that he went into a free service that he did a few years ago, and when going on this Disney trip, apparently he cannot sue Disney. Even if his wife passed away, oh well, you can't sue Disney for it. That's their reason to go and get away with it. Now, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw this report, I looked at it and I was like, I'm sorry, what? There's no... I honestly did not believe it. Like, I was thinking to myself, there is no way that this is actually real, that this is a legitimate piece of news that's actually going around. I was thinking like, okay, well, it came out from like the New York Post. Maybe they're just making things up, you know, like they're spreading misinformation just for the sake of making Disney look bad, because I mean, they do have a bit of a history doing so. But then the news start to spread more and more from more reliable sources. And that's when I look upon it and I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. This is like legit flat out evil. This, you know, that's really what, you know, this is honestly one of the most villainous things I've seen from Disney that could even overshadow some of the most evil villains that they've created for their movies. It's honestly kind of insane to look at this actually occur. And not only is this like cartoonishly evil, where I feel like this is one of those scenarios where you would see this in like an episode of a TV show or even in movies, where the main character would go and sign a crooked contract that the villain created, and then when the main character realized that they get screwed over, that's when the villain would say, check out this contract, you didn't look into the fine print, and then you see in those tiny little letters of like how they ended up getting screwed over. Like, I feel like this is one of those cases right over here. And not to mention that this is just going to cause some serious doubt onto people in terms of signing on with Disney, in terms of anything. It really does put into question how far, you know, like how far will this term of use go? Like, if you would go and accept on using anything from Disney, will this actually go and apply? Even if you've done so in the past, like a few years ago. You know, it really made people feel like if you would go and like sign anything from Disney. Like if you agree to go and sign on to Disney Plus, it's hard not to think of the executives suddenly becoming like Ursula, and they're like, "Floss them, get some, now I got it, boys. The boss is on the roll." You know, something like that. But it's honestly so ridiculous and just such an evil reason to suddenly bring up something like Disney Plus, something so unrelated with this case whatsoever, to the point that, like, you just want to get out of a situation or, like, just end a case where a guy ended up losing his wife in a pretty tragic way. But with that said, though, is this actually the truth? Is there actually more to this than what's been reported or what social media has been saying about Disney? Because right now, that is currently the big trend and currently what's popular amongst making memes. That no matter what, signing a deal with Disney or signing with them on anything, whether it be going to the parks or subscribing to Disney Plus or whatever, it's kind of like making a deal with the devil. Now, is there actually more to this? Well, the answer is actually yes. And this is something that I've actually discovered on this website right over here. This is from mickeyblog.com. And I know a lot of you might be raising your hand and you might feel pretty sus because, well, this is a pretty Disney-centric website, but they actually do bring up a very good point, and probably the one legit explanation for Disney, or like the one legitimate defense for Disney in this case. And this is actually something that they have mentioned, which is something that a Disney spokesperson has actually said. So reading from my source here on Mickey Blog, it states, "We are deeply saddened by the family's loss and understand their grief. Given that this restaurant is neither owned nor operated by Disney, we are merely defending ourselves against the plaintiff's attorney's attempt to include us in their lawsuit against the restaurant." And that is the major thing where technically Disney does have one point. It is regarding the fact that the restaurant that they ate is not actually owned by Disney. And this is where I would go and bring up the complicated case of Disney Springs, because not many people understand like what is going on, because technically not everything that is in Walt Disney World is actually owned and operated by Disney. The one major exception is the Disney Springs area. It's kind of like their own little downtown district, in which, for Disney, they only own the property. That doesn't necessarily mean that they own everything that is in it. I mean, sure, Disney can go and actually build some of their own stuff. They can make some of their own shops in there. They can make some of their own restaurants, like their own Disney-themed restaurants. But in terms of actual, like in terms of things that are actually from Disney, there's not that much. The majority of it, of all the shops and all the restaurants and all the activities that you would find in that area, is actually owned by third party. That it's owned from people who own the businesses, not from Disney. A good example of this is actually with AMC. For example, in Disney Springs, you will actually find an AMC theater. Or another example that I can bring is that, like, just outside of it, that's still in Disney World, but just outside of Disney Springs, there's actually a Hilton Hotel. And even though they're technically in the Disney property, they are not actually owned by Disney. The AMC theater is run and operated and managed by AMC, whereas the Hilton Hotel is actually run and managed by the Hilton Hotel. And whatever management that, like, they would be responsible for, whatever actions would be taken, it would belong to them and not necessarily from Disney. Like, in this whole situation, like with, with this whole controversy of pinning the blame on Disney because of what happened in the restaurant, it would be like blaming the landlord for the murder of someone because the murder has actually occurred in the building that the landlord has owned. Yeah, it happened in their area, but that doesn't mean that they are the ones that are doing it. And in the case over here with Raglan Road, like the restaurant that is in Disney Springs, that belongs exclusively to Raglan Road. It is not a Disney-owned and operated restaurant. They're not the ones who are in charge of operating it, making sure the food is like high, that the food is all like high quality, it's healthy, and it's good for everyone, and to make sure like that it's all up to code and stuff like that. That's what I meant to go and actually say. So if Disney wants to go and actually get themselves out of the lawsuit because they're just saying to the plaintiff that they're barking up the wrong tree, that I can honestly understand. I know that I am running a bit of the risk where people are going to just accuse me of being a Disney shill because I'm not demonizing them completely and I'm not blaming them for what is completely happening over here. But there is a part of me when looking into the actual facts on the matter, Disney is not the one to 100% blame on all this. Like, the main perpetrator is Raglan Road more so than it would be for Disney. However, I still do have a little bit of a concern, and that is for the guy who is suing. Because I'm just saying right now, I am all for this guy doing this entire lawsuit to go and seek justice for what happened to his wife. I mean, it definitely is true that what happened to him is very tragic. Honestly, it's something that should not have happened. And my condolences to the guy in regards to what happened to his wife. It is very sad for sure. And I do hope that he will receive the justice that he is looking for, that he will have the compensation that he deserved because of that tragic moment. But with that said, what I'm also hoping for is not just for the guy to actually seek justice, but if Disney wants to get themselves out of the way to not be involved with this lawsuit, okay, that's fine. But I am still a little bit worried about the whole arbitration thing. The fact that they are bringing this up in order to get themselves out of it. I am hoping that Disney won't be in the way so that the guy can have justice. And even this article on Mickey Blog, they did bring up this kind of concern. They even stated, while Disney is correct in its assertion that Raglan Road is not owned or operated by the company, it should be noted that Disney's motion to move the case to arbitration seemingly has nothing to do with that point. The argument was not that Disney should be excluded from the suit, but that Piccolo was bound by the Disney Plus terms and conditions to settle the case through arbitration. It is certainly possible that Disney will file other motions to get itself removed from the case. So far, however, that has yet to happen. And that is honestly the big concern. That is the big thing that, honestly, I don't want to see. This is the unfortunate matter that I feel like if Disney does go with the arbitration and just throw a wrench in this entire lawsuit, that's going to be the moment where they're going to prove the internet to actually be correct, because regardless if Disney is actually responsible or not for the death of the woman, they are still accountable from stopping a guy seeking justice for the passing of his wife. That's the part where I would feel like it is massively wrong. So, honestly, I feel like this is a move that I don't know how it's going to do in court, but when it comes to public relations, I feel like the lawyers honestly have massively screwed up. The fact that they would go and first and foremost, hold up the Disney Plus terms of use instead of actually starting things out by saying hey, listen, man, we don't belong here, they're not affiliated with us entirely. We don't own the operations that's going on in that restaurant. We just want to get out. they should have honestly said that first instead of pulling the Disney Plus terms of use card. Because that's the thing that's currently getting them in massive trouble right now. That is the reason why they have been getting some serious backlash from the internet. So how Disney is going to get themselves out of this entire situation, that remains to be seen. But I am personally hoping that they can go and do the right thing and actually help out the guy instead of messing up with his plans for justice with this whole arbitration case. You know, like, honestly, I don't feel like, I feel like there should be, like, if Disney is going to go out of their way, you know, to take some action, it would be more against Raglan Road. I think it is safe to say that with this restaurant, their reputation is going, you know, it's going to get a serious blow. Rather, if that's actually going to stay with Disney, I am not sure. But I'm just going to say right now, for those of you who have fond memories of Raglan Road, Irish pub and restaurant, don't expect to stay at Disney soon, because with the amount of, with the nightmare PR that the restaurant has given to Disney, I don't think they're going to keep them for any time soon, and we might see a replacement occur. So I'm just going to lay that out there right now. But again, I am hoping that the guy himself can actually go and seek justice, that he can go and actually do the lawsuit against the restaurant, whether it be with or without Disney. And I am hoping that if Disney wants to get themselves out of it, then don't mess with the guy's plan. If you want to prove the internet wrong by saying that you're not as much of the bad guy and that this whole terms of use case is not what it seems, then you let the guy seek justice. Because if you're gonna go, if the arbitration is gonna cause problems with that, if it's gonna end up making the lawsuit be dismissed, then you're just gonna end up proving the internet right. So I'm just saying. Now, and also I just want to go and make a statement right here that I know I am not a law expert, and I never claimed to be. And I know there's like so much more to this entire case and with what Disney is doing and stuff like that. I did hear that in the future, Legal Eagle is going to be making a video out of that. So I highly recommend that you just wait until he puts out a video explaining everything so that we don't immediately jump into conclusions or immediately jump into the hate bandwagon of like demonizing Disney or anything like that. But still, though, there's just so much of this. Like, a lot of it really does suck. But I just want to go and stay right over here. Even though I am not a legal expert and that there are some things that are more complex than what it seems on the surface here, I just want to go out and put my statement that I really do wish the best for the guy in this entire lawsuit. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, what do you think about the whole Disney Plus lawsuit controversy? I mean, I know it's been circulating around all across social media, but I would like to know what your thoughts are in this situation. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, this lawsuit is a stupid mess. If Disney wants to dismiss the lawsuit, have them blame the restaurant staff for not checking to make sure they aren't serving someone food with a peanut allergy. Agreeing to the Disney Plus terms of services should not apply to the flippin' parks. That's not how anything works. Disney has nothing to do with this person's, Disney Plus has nothing to do with this person's death. Just put out a statement saying they'll put a warning for potential allergen ingredients on the menu. It's so dumb. And that's why, honestly, I feel like there's also one notion that you're not going to hear many of the other influencers go out and actually say, especially if they want to go and rank up a lot of clicks and views and stuff like that. But there is a part of me that does feel like maybe there might be a little bit more to Disney's terms of services, especially in terms of the Disney Plus thing. I could totally be wrong, and again, I am not a legal expert here, but maybe there could be more into that terms of use. Like, if you actually really do read fully into that whole section, maybe there could be something that there might be a bit more of an explanation of what is going on with this whole situation and why Disney is even using it in this case. I feel like there might be a bit more that we are getting that is out of context, and maybe even out of context on purpose to make Disney look even worse. Again, I could totally be wrong, but there is a suspicion that maybe it could be the case. Let's see now. I can't really 100% blame Disney for the wrongful death, but their lawyers should really need to learn how to handle it better. My condolences to Piccolo for the loss of his wife, and I'm hoping for the best that he'll seek justice against Raglan Road for the wrongful death. The internet really hates Disney for being evil, but in this case, I could see why they have a point for this controversy and should have been called out for how they've been handling the case. This is just really wild and tragic. You're telling me, dude. As much as I am sick of people hating on Disney because it's the cool and hip thing to do, in this case, I think it is justifiable. The fact that something like this happens, and it honestly makes Disney look evil. While I get where you're coming from, there's still no excuse, and it's worth noting that Disney Springs isn't the only thing Disney doesn't fully own. Tokyo Disneyland is another prime example of that. No, you definitely have a point, and yeah, like, there is a part of it where even though there are some there are some reasons that, like, it would be a defense for Disney, like, there is a part of it that I do understand why Disney is in a bad light on this, and it does feel pretty justifiable, honestly. Unless we can have more information and more education on, like, what's going on with this lawsuit, or what is even Disney's strategy in the first place, or what is on Disney Plus's terms of services when people would go and accept in order to go and use it. Honestly, like, for now, like, what's been going on, it's like, yeah, it really does make Disney look bad, and it's like, justifiably so. I think Disney needs a lot more explanation on their end on what the fridge is going on. Let's see. What makes this all so scummy of companies like Disney and platforms like this, like Discord, is that forcing agreements to arbitration is that it's a subject that not many people are well educated on, at least as far as I am pretty concerned. Disney failed to beat its evil corporation allegations the minute one execs have the audacity to say the Owl House doesn't fit the Disney brand, or at least with that particular audience over there. And then let's see what other comments would we have here. Let's see. I don't like this any more than the rest of you, and my sympathies are with the plaintiff. But Disney is in their full legal right to dismiss the lawsuit and face no legal repercussions. Disney is an evil company and always have been since 1923. But you don't get as powerful as Disney without learning to make the legal system play dead and roll over so you don't have to face the consequences. With that said, what have you been watching on Disney Plus? Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things that you learn about in terms of the legal system. There is a big difference between what is moral and what is legal. And sometimes there are things that are perfectly legal that, you are allowed to do that are not moral at all. It's kind of like the argument about freedom of speech and how hate speech would be included. It's technically completely legal, but it is not moral in any way possible. All right, I think I'll read one more comment before we go on to our next break. Let's see, what other comments would there be? Just want to see. Oh, okay, I'll go over here. When I first heard about this news, I thought this was a crazy episode of The Simpsons with Lionel Hutz as the lawyer. But when I delved further into this is just a bad move for Disney. This is like suing the landlord for the murder at someone else's address. I can't wait for the Legal Eagle video, but this is still a jerk move by Disney. Yeah, exactly, unfortunately. All right, so we're going to go on to our next break. And when we do return, we are going to go into another feud that's going on that technically Disney is involved, but let's just say it is a lot more complex than what we have seen over here with the whole Raglan Road debacle. In fact, this is not a case where you can clearly guess who is the good guy and the bad guy over here. I'll even go further and say that this is going to be quite an epic battle that Marvel has gotten themselves into. Alright, now when it comes to our next story, if you thought the previous one that we have just talked about with the whole Disney Plus arbitration thing is crazy, oh boy, this one I gotta say is even more wild. Like in this one, this is a case in which maybe Disney is not necessarily the bad guy, especially with their explanation to what's been going on. And this is not a case where it's like in the previous one where Disney would go and explain to themselves that they don't own the restaurant, but people are still going out of their way to label them as the bad guy. This is a case where Disney would have their explanation and people are like, ooh, you know, maybe in this case we gotta go and listen. And what I am actually talking about here is regarding the whole feud between Marvel and Beau DeMayo. Yes, now you probably remember that just before the release of X-Men 97, Marvel fired its creator, Beau DeMayo, and it seemed like a bit of a shock. But it wasn't until recently in which Beau DeMayo decided to be a bit more open about what's been going on and why even some of his credits are going to be taken out. Now, very recently, Beau DeMayo went onto Twitter and he revealed why is it that his credits in Season 2 of X-Men 97 is going to be stripped or is stripped away. And I'm just going to go and read you here from my source on The Hollywood Reporter, in which he stated here, above is the X-Men fan art I posted on Instagram for Gay Pride in June. On June 13th, Marvel sent a letter notifying me that they stripped my Season 2 credits due to the post, DeMayo wrote on Twitter Thursday, along with an illustration of a shirtless version of himself as the superhero Cyclops. And if you want to know about the image itself, it's actually right over here. It's this little piece in which you see, it's definitely something that emphasizes gay pride, where he's only wearing very tight shorts, or I could almost say tidy whities, and he has the visor of X-Men along with the belt that's going along his chest and stomach. So, or just going along with his body over here. So, basically just expressing his gay pride with some fan art that has been done for that has been done for him. So that is his case of why he lost his credits. And on top of that, there is even his lawyer who also stepped up to go and call out both Marvel and Disney. And his lawyer, by the way, is someone that Disney is pretty familiar with, is someone by the name of Brian Friedman, who has said here this time on my source here on Deadline that he has handled some of Hollywood's biggest wrongful termination cases in the past few years, now representing DeMayo. And he would go even further and actually threaten to actually go and sue Marvel and Disney for the wrongful actions that they have done to him. In which he will go, and I'm just going to state over here. Now, Friedman stated, having much experience with Disney, the playbook is always the same. Family-friendly on the outside, but secretly attempting to plan illegal, unconscionable items in contracts that silence the truth and stop the employee/customer from asserting basic constitutional rights. In the past few years, the top lawyer has sued Disney on behalf of such clients as former ESPN broadcaster Sage Steele. As we will explain through detailed examples, which we will roll out in detail one by one, Disney's model is very clear and a repetitive illegal pattern. Once it gets challenged or exposed, the gaslighting and redirection of the blame towards anyone willing to tell the truth starts through an international well-oiled publicity machine. As for his client, Beau DeMayo wants nothing from Marvel and Disney except the truth. He will bravely tell the truth, so will I. Stand by. Now, does Disney have anything to say for himself? Is there anything that Disney would go and actually reply to this, to both Beau DeMayo and to Brian Friedman? Well, actually, yes. And the shot that they have fired, oh boy, is it a big one. Going back to the Hollywood Reporter article, Disney actually did put out a statement in which it states, oh boy, oh, that went a little too fast. It states right over here, Mr. DeMayo was terminated in March of 2024 following an internal investigation, said a Marvel spokesperson in a statement. Given the egregious nature of the findings, we severed ties with him immediately, and he has no further affiliation with Marvel. Sources say that following his exit, an agreement was reached between the two parties over the issue of tweeting about the show, something that DeMayo has continued to occasionally do. In light of the breaches, his credit for season 2 was removed. While no detail of the cause of the termination or the internal reviews have surfaced, sources say it involved sexual misconduct. So, to make a long story short of it, Marvel and to a certain extent Disney has pretty much accused Beau DeMayo of pulling a John Lasseter. And while it has not been confirmed, there have been allegations as to what specifically he may have done during his time at Marvel. And some of these include the usual groping, but then there are also cases where he may have sent nude pictures of himself to some of the younger employees at Marvel. Again, these are just allegations. We don't know 100% if this is actually true, but so far, those are what the claims say to be in relation to Beau DeMayo. Now, in this case here, there's a bit of a he said, she said kind of situation, where on one hand, with what Beau DeMayo is saying, in terms of what he is explaining, and especially like what's been tarnishing his reputation, or why is it that Marvel is really putting a massive wrench onto Beau DeMayo's career prospects, is the fact that he is openly gay and that he is pridefully presenting it all across social media, that he is a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and that he is very proud of it. And that's the reason why they want to go and distance themselves with DeMayo. It's pretty much for what is essentially homophobic reasons. But then you have Marvel and Disney's side, in which they would go and fire back by saying that they did an internal investigation, and not only has he done some actions that would ruin just about any non-disclosure agreements about talking about the progress of what's been happening with the show and stuff like that, but also the cases of sexual misconducts. Now, there's a lot of things that you could say on like one side or another. And yes, I am aware that when it comes to Disney, when it comes to their views on LGBTQ plus and stuff like that, often the thing is that they do like it if they would go and make money out of it, but they often have some pretty conservative views in which they don't want to go and fully display that. We have seen some examples like when, they expressed a lot of concerns when they would show the kissing scenes in either Nimona or Lightyear. Yes, Disney does technically have a bit of a history of that. But then again, some would go and argue that if you go on Beau DeMayo's social media, he has done a lot of posts of gay pride and being happy about being gay throughout, like on his Twitter or on his Instagram or what have you, during his time at Marvel. Like, he's already done a whole bunch of those posts, yet he never got fired. So there is something that feels pretty suspicious, where somehow this one post where he would present a fan art of himself dressed up like a sexy Cyclops would end up costing him his entire credits for season 2 of X-Men 97, despite the fact that he is the creator. But then again, when it comes to the allegations of sexual misconducts, that is a pretty serious thing. Like, yeah, sure, it may not be like as serious as like sexual harassment or even full-on sexual assault, but still though, it is actually something that should be really taken seriously as much as those. That doesn't change the fact that they are not okay. And especially with a company like Disney, oh, they are very serious about it. They want to ensure that nobody would go and do any of those hateful and despicable acts right there. And I mean, the greatest example of that is with John Lasseter. Keep in mind that back in 2017, John Lasseter was at his prime with his career. Like, he was pretty much considered one of the greatest animation leaders, the man who saved Disney animation from their slump in the 2000s. The man who is considered the great pioneer of computer animation in general. Like, even at his prime, when he got called out for all that long history of sexual misconduct that he has committed towards several women who had worked at Pixar and possibly even Disney, and that he even admitted to it, Disney decided that he's got to go. They can no longer keep him at that point. And if they can no longer keep John Lasseter at his prime with that, what makes you think they're going to go and keep Beau DeMayo if the allegations are actually true in this case? And the thing that honestly makes it the most concerning, the thing that honestly makes it very worrisome, is how silent Beau DeMayo and his lawyer is. As I am recording this right now, it is actually a case in which we haven't heard anything from both of them. They have not addressed this whatsoever. They're just focusing on antagonizing Disney and possibly taking them to court, but never once did they ever address anything regarding the sexual misconducts or any of the allegations. And if they're not saying anything about it, let's just say that the silence, it might be louder than whatever they're saying against Disney, because Disney actually did, Disney and Marvel actually did bring up a very good reason as to why they would have to go and fire someone like Beau DeMayo. And if they have nothing to go and argue against that, then it doesn't matter what claims that they have against Disney. Yeah, they can be an evil company. Maybe there are times that they can be homophobic as well. But if Beau DeMayo is actually, if the allegations against Beau DeMayo are true, if he has done any of those sexual misconducts, if he has been sending nude photos to young employees at Marvel, then Disney is the one who is in the right on this. Disney has every right to go and actually fire Beau DeMayo and take him away from his credits, because they don't want any affiliation with someone who would have a history of sexual misconduct. And that's why this entire situation, I feel like it's honestly a lot more messy than the Disney Plus arbitration case. Because in this thing right over here, it's a lot less black and white. And unless we do get more answers soon, honestly, I feel like this is a case where, it's leaning in a bit more and more that maybe Marvel and Disney might get the W on this one. And honestly, I'm not going to go and immediately go and label, I'm not going to go and label Beau DeMayo as a predator just yet. All I'm asking is that we need more answers, especially from Beau. Pretty soon, we need to know when, we need to know if these allegations are true, and Beau should go and immediately address them. Or if anyone anyone working at Marvel or has used to work with Marvel alongside Beau DeMayo should actually go and say something. I feel like that is the very serious case right over there that might ultimately screw over. And if those things are true, then honestly, sorry, Beau, but you might want to go and take the L on that one. So that's why, honestly, I just wanted to go and express my thoughts on this entire case. And yeah, like, there are some arguments in which maybe Beau might be in the right for this one, or maybe like that Disney might be more in the wrong for this one. And it's not, honestly, there's nothing against Beau DeMayo being gay or anything like that. But if he is using it for more predatory ways, that those allegations might have to be true, I'm sorry, but I might have to go and side with Disney on this one, because yes, sexual misconduct is a legitimate reason to go and immediately fire someone. So hopefully we will go and get some answers pretty soon about this entire case, because yeah, as it is looking right now, it's a bit messy, and it's one of those unfortunate cases that maybe the corporations might be right on this one. All right, so with that said and done, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think about the Beau DeMayo versus Marvel feud? Do you agree with Beau DeMayo on this case? Do you think Marvel might be more in the right on this one? Let me know what you all think. All right, let's see here. Yeah, like, when I heard he was fired at Disney, not giving any reasons why, was very suspicious. He seemed to be like a chill guy at first, and seemed to be engaging with fans in a fun way despite being fired. But when the reason of why he was fired showed up, I instantly lost respect for him. Like, it's okay to be a bit risky occasionally, but that does not mean you get away with abusing your coworkers. Exactly. Like, if you want, if you want to be gay, if you want to enjoy being like even a little risque and being horny on social media, like, that's fine. There's not, like, as long as you don't go too far with it, that is perfectly fine. But when that ends up being leaked onto like the workforce, when you actually do that in real life with actual employees, that's when it legitimately becomes a problem. Again, these are just allegations. We don't know what is considered to be true, but still, though, they're not helping out Beau's case. Let's see now. When I first heard about this news, I was wondering what could have caused Disney to fire Beau DeMayo. And now it has come out, I completely understand. Considering how silent he's been about it, I honestly am starting to think it was justifiable why Disney fired him. Not to mention how Disney has had a prominent history of dropping very problematic people. Case in point, look at what they did to Jonathan Majors after he was found to be guilty with his allegations. Yeah, that is another example right there. Like, you better, like, if you're going to be working with Disney and have a prominent role with Disney, then you better have a clean record. Otherwise, Disney might not be so kind to you as much as the prospects that they would give you, Like, they have no problem dropping people like John Lasseter or Jonathan Majors. And in this case with Beau DeMayo, hopefully we will have some answers soon in terms of who is right, because so far, DeMayo might be the next Majors. Let's see now, what else do we have here? What other comments would there be? I just need to have that out of the way. Yikes! Unlike the last story, Disney is actually very serious about what happened with Beau DeMayo. Say what you will about their views towards the LGBTQ plus community, but sexual misconduct is actually a very serious matter. I'm very happy that Disney and Marvel is in the green for firing him. I know that Beau can go nuts with being gay and all, but going far as to harass with actual people, it's definitely not a good idea. Again, there is a limit with what you can do in terms of being horny. Like, yeah, making like fun little jokes online and maybe simping for characters, that's one thing. And, that's relatively harmless and fun. But then, if you're going to go too far with it and things get too serious to the point where things get uncomfortable when you bring it in real life, that's when it really becomes a problem. Let's see now. And another thing about these types of accusations is how they pull a double standard when a customer and straight does it. They go kind of off the hook. But if it's a GNC and LGBTQ does it, they justify. They just automatically lose their flatulence completely. Collectively, they lose their flatulence collectively. And in their side note on the John Lasseter thing, again, it's more angst and brooding and melancholic feel when it comes to the reminder that he's just me of the founders and start off it all when it comes to computer animation and why I somehow not entirely in. And okay, that's when the comments just stop right there. All right, when I first heard of this, it sounded suspicious, but the news gave me more information. I have nothing against DeMayo being gay, but with it being sexual assault, okay, no, it's not sexual assault, it's alleged sexual misconduct, just to go and let that out there. Yeah, you're on your own, dude. Disney hasn't been the nicest with sexual predators, but he'll be like Lasseter or Majors, someone whose whose legacy is tarnished after this. Yeah, exactly. So, with that said, we're gonna go on to one more story, and when we do return, we will be discussing about something that I have briefly mentioned with Logan in the last episode, but it looks like it became bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that it really got fans concerned. So, we're going to go and answer the big question, is it actually shutting down? Well, we will find out after this. And now, everyone, it is now time that we will cap this episode off with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, we are going to go on to a little rumor. Now, this started out as a rumor last weekend, and as I've stated just before the break, this was something that I have addressed with Logan, that we had a bit of a discussion if this is going to occur or not, and I'll just say now, I still stand by that it is highly likely that it will not occur, that whatever rumors are coming out, the thing is most likely going to be safe. But ever since the announcement and after D23, those rumors just kept on growing and growing and growing to the point that it's not been helping out with the anxiety of fans, and they have become increasingly concerned. And that's why we have been seeing more and more social media posts about this entire situation. Now, I didn't think that I would go and immediately have a whole discussion on this in the podcast, but let's go ahead and have a discussion in regards to Muppet Vision 3D. Now, for those of you who don't know, last weekend at D23, they have announced that there's going to be a new area at Disney's Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World that is going to be entirely themed to Monsters, Inc., the hit Pixar film. And there's going to be some areas where, like, you could shop. There's also going to be, like, some restaurants, possibly, like, a real-life version of Harryhausen's. But especially the main attraction of all this is going to be a Monsters, Inc. themed roller coaster in which you go in the factory and that you will go into the door scene, that you will go and ride around and you'll see all the doors around. So it was an idea that for the longest time people have dreamed for an attraction like that, and Disney is finally going to go and bring that into a reality. However, ever since that announcement, there were rumors that were speculating that one of the possible places that it could actually go might actually be in the area that houses Muppet Vision 3D, one of the oldest attractions at Disney's Hollywood Studios and a massive fan favorite. So rumors are going around that maybe that's going to be replaced, that the ride itself is going to be gone, and that it will be replaced by Monsters, Inc. Now, from there, a lot of people would go and dismiss the argument, and they would go and actually say that maybe that's not really the case, and that instead they're going to go on the opposite end of the park, where instead Monsters, Inc. is going to be found in the animation courtyard area, where you would go and find a Star Wars launch bay, considering that the area is much larger than in Muppet Vision 3D. That gives more than enough room to go and build a roller coaster, along with other things like, like restaurants and shops and stuff like that. But then things took a very unexpected turn when this article over here showed up. This is an article from The Wrap called "As Disney Tips Shuttering Muppet Vision 3D, Fans Decry Devastating News." And this is actually brought to us here by Drew Taylor, in which you may recall Drew Taylor as the guy who recently he wrote the article about the Netflix deal with Skydance Animation that we have previously talked about here on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And he would go and just bring up a bunch of fuel and just throw it in the fire, just make things even worse by trying to emphasize more and more that Disney may have actually considered to go and replace Muppet Vision 3D with the Monsters, Inc. area. And it's specifically, just to go and double check, but it's right over here, in which he went and, would it be over here? Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It's definitely this part, in which it states here, according to a source with knowledge on the situation, there was an alternate artwork that was going to be shown during this presentation that would have more directly pinpointed that Muppet Vision is on the chopping block. At the last minute, that artwork was swapped for something more nebulous. There were fears internally that Josh D'Amaro, the unflappable and widely beloved chairman of Disney Experiences, would get booed as he delivered the news. Eagle-eyed fans still spotted a telltale water tower that gave away the location, taking to social media to express the outrage. Essentially, it's to go and express that allegedly they would say that they were ready to go and make that announcement, but it was just at the last minute they decided not to do so and to swap it with a different artwork that they had prepared. Again, is this actually true? I don't know. And even on this article, they would go and address at the same time that they would actually go and replace, they would actually not replace Muppet Vision 3D, but instead be in the animation courtyard. But straight after that comment, they just went straight into discussing about the possibility of Muppet Vision 3D being removed for the Monsters, Inc. area. Even discussing with some high-profile Disney influencers or Disney-themed influencers, including Kevin Perjurer of Defunctland, asking for his opinion, and even Dan Becker, aka Disney Dan. In which he would go and also talk about his opinion on the entire piece. So basically, ever since this article came out, it just became this massive frenzy where people are freaking out about the possible prospects that Muppet Vision 3D might actually be taken out, in which the claims right over here would go and say that, well, they did, putting up this story about how, oh, well, Disney has considered it, or that, it was one of the ideas that they could go into the chopping block, mainly to go and emphasize that Muppet Vision 3D is in danger, like really put up that, to really highlight that particular thing to let fans know that its fate might not be completely sealed, or if it's going to be okay and stuff like that. Now, in that regard, I'm just going to go and repeat what I've previously said before, including what I've said with Logan in the last episode. Honestly, when you do think logically about this whole situation, I think it is most likely that Muppet Vision 3D is going to be safe. When you do think about Monsters, Inc. and how they would go and try to set things up where they want to go and have some shops, some restaurants, a possible meet and greet area where you take pictures with Sully and Mike and stuff like that, and then you want to have a major roller coaster involved in this whole situation, it makes a lot more sense to put it in a different area, like in the animation courtyard, than it would be in Muppet Vision 3D. Because Muppet Vision 3D is a relatively small space. You know, it's just like this small little area that has a 3D theater, a shop, and a pizzeria. Well, not even, yeah, like there is a shop, but there's also 2 restaurants, and that's pretty much it. Not enough space for what they would want to do with it. But in the animation courtyard, not only do you have much bigger space to go and create this massive attraction, not to mention that some of the things around it, like, they're not really that much in use. Like, even like with the Lightning McQueen show that they have at Hollywood Studios, you could pretty much remove that and you could make more space for the Monsters, Inc. themed area. But it also makes a lot more sense where you would have this Pixar area be next to another Pixar area with Toy Story Mania, and or with Toy Story Land that has attractions like the Slinky Dog Dash and Toy Story Mania. That's what I mean. But also on top of that, like if you would go and replace something like Star Wars Launch Bay, you would not receive as much backlash as you would with something like Muppet Vision 3D. Like, if you're going to replace Muppet Vision 3D, then of course there's going to be backlash. There will be some anger. There will be people who will be massively upset over it. But with Star Wars Launch Bay, you know, not many people are going to miss it. I mean, it like the building is no longer what it used to be. You know, it's no longer it used to be the animation studio where they would do some extra help on some of the Disney Renaissance film like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, and even did the animation for stuff like Lilo and Stitch and Mulan and Brother Bear. But nowadays, it's no longer that. And it's like, it's now just a shell of its former self. And at that point, you might as well just go and take it down entirely and replace it with something that would be a lot more exciting, especially if it can go and help spread the masses so that they don't clump up onto either Rise of the Resistance or Tower of Terror or Toy Story Mania, for example. At least, you know, that honestly makes a lot more sense. So by that logic, I think honestly, it makes a lot more sense that you would keep Muppet Vision 3D and put Monsters, Inc. in another place. But still, though, that doesn't change the fact that there is a possibility that this could occur. Sure, the chances are low, but there is still a chance that could legitimately happen. And in that regard, that's why, like, even I went and actually made a post where I would go and express why I feel like it is important for Disney to go and keep Muppet Vision 3D, and not to mention how Muppet Vision 3D is my favorite attraction at Walt Disney World, you know, to really go and let out my voice in this entire situation. And that's why there are people out there, they would go and release the hashtag, like they made a bit of a movement, like hashtag save the Muppets or save Muppet Vision and stuff like that. You know, there is still that concern, like if that chance still does occur, well then we should still go and try to take action. But sorry, a bit of spit was about to go in the wrong hole, so anyways, as I was saying, there's also another thing that I do want to go and actually comment, and even though this article really freaked people out, there is something about it that I can't help but feel like Yeah, and also just to go and quickly mention, I do see in the chat wall, some people are actually bringing up a great point. This is not to mention about the historical value that Muppet Vision 3D has, which is Jim Henson's swan song as well. So there is some massive relevancy with the Muppets on why it should be kept there, not to mention on how important it is for the attraction to say, because it is the only one in the world that features Muppet Vision 3D. You cannot find it in any of the other Disney parks. I mean, it's one thing to go and get rid of Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer's Island at the Magic Kingdom. Like, that's not that big of a deal, considering that it still exists at Disneyland, where you could find the OG Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer's Island. So it's like, yeah, it's a bit of a loss, but it's not that big of a deal. But if they remove Muppet Vision 3D, it's going to be gone, like, forever. Like, that's going to be the only one that they're going to fully remove, and that's it. But back to what I was talking about, specifically with this article right over here, there is something that I feel like I have to say and honestly criticize a bit. Because, yeah, this article here really did spread a lot of paranoia and a lot of fears in regards to the fate of Muppet Vision 3D. But there is something about it that, honestly, when you do look at it and read it in full, I cannot help but feel like the point of this is not necessarily to go and state the facts, but to really go and push a narrative. Like, again, I just want to point out, like, he does quickly highlight about the possibility that it's going to be at Animation Courtyard and on the other side, and that Muppet Vision 3D is going to be safe, but it only emphasizes this part right here. It doesn't change that the rest of it is nothing but Muppet Vision 3D and the possibility that it might get removed, like really emphasizing all of that as well. And that's why I feel like with Drew Taylor in this case, that he's really pushing, like, really the goal of it is to go and spread that paranoia, to go and spread the fear that Muppet Vision 3D might be closing down. Like, even with his articles when he would discuss about Skydance Animation, like, you could tell that he's really expressing a lot of his personal biases and doing so much to try to make Skydance Animation and John Lasseter look good. Like, to really put John Lasseter's prospects as an animation visionary back onto it. You know, kind of like he unironically believes in the advertising that they would do with either Spellbound or with Luck. So in that regards, that is why I am saying right over here that when it comes to Drew Taylor, if you hear any reports that the source comes from him, I highly recommend that you go and press X to doubt. You know, I am not accusing that he is a liar. I'm not accusing him that he's spreading misinformation. But it's just at the point where I can't help but feel like the more I would hear the things that he would go and bring out and that he would break some kind of news, the more it honestly feels like it becomes increasingly ridiculous. Like, on top of this article, apparently he also released a bit of news that allegedly the Tiana series for Disney Plus is going to have not 2D animation, but rather some subtle Spider-Verse-like hybrid animation going on. I don't know. I feel like the more that comes out of that guy, the more it feels like it's harder and harder to believe. Again, I'm not saying he's a liar. I'm not accusing him of spreading misinformation, but I'm honestly really questioning his journalistic integrity when all he's mainly doing is just forcing out a narrative and forcing out his biases. So that's why, honestly, like, don't immediately trust what this guy says at face value. Again, just press X to doubt when you hear about what he would go and say. So with that said, though, if there is something else that I would highly recommend, is that you would go and check out this article over here called The Future of Muppet Vision 3D, What We Know and What We Don't Know, from toughpigs.com. Now, you would think that on a website that is dedicated to all the Muppets, You would think that maybe this one would be heavily biased as well, but more biased for Muppet Vision 3D. But that is surprisingly not the case. This is actually something that is actually very balanced, and the main goal of it is to go and state the facts. Like separate the sections where they would go and argue why is it Muppet Vision 3D would be closing and why is it that Muppet Vision 3D would not be closing, and putting out their arguments that actually are pretty interesting, are honestly pretty interesting. Some that I have brought up even, and that honestly, they would even bring up their own good points as well. And they even mentioned the most important thing to do, the most important thing to do about all of this, number one, is that we do not panic. We do not freak out about this entire situation. No matter what you would hear about Muppet Vision 3D, do not panic, do not freak out, and keep in mind, nothing has been confirmed. The only time we will ever get a confirmation is if Disney is going to say something. But in the meantime, what we can do in terms of action is that you can go and express your voice. To go and use your voice, express yourself, go on social media, and talk about what Muppet Vision 3D means to you. If you care about the attraction, if you still want it to be in operation, then just let your voice be heard. Go out and say it. Tell people to go and share posts about Muppet Vision 3D and why you want to go and keep it. That's the best thing that you can do right now until we actually get an answer. And that is the one thing that from all this, I do hope pretty soon we will get an answer. I do hope that Disney will actually say something. And again, even though that for me, I feel like I'm still in the position where I feel like it's most likely that Muppet Vision 3D is going to stay and not be replaced by the Monsters, Inc. area. Just right now, I feel like with me and many other fans out there, we're kind of like at the end of Inside Out 2. Like with anxiety, just running around our little heads, just going around, whoa, what if it happens? What if they do shut it down? What are they going to do? And just cause a little bit of a tornado. If anything, we just want Disney to just make a little bit of a post to go and address that they are not replacing Muppet Vision 3D. Like even throughout the week, I was hoping that Disney would go and actually say something about it, and that maybe they would just say that we never plan to go and replace Muppet Vision 3D. Whatever you read on social media is just full of crap, or what have you. Or maybe that the people who would write articles that maybe Muppet Vision 3D are liars and stuff like that. I was hoping Disney would go and do that. But it's just not really helping the case when Disney is being silent. I mean, if you're going to go out of your way to go and address some of the controversies, like with the whole Disney Plus arbitration case, or with the whole situation with Beau DeMayo and stuff like that, then you could at least get out of your way to go and make one little post addressing what are you going to do with Muppet Vision 3D, and if you are going to be keeping it or not. Because that's ultimately all that we are asking right now. Are you going to keep Muppet Vision 3D? Just tell us what your plan is. Just say something so that we can have some relief, so that we can at least have some answers. That's all that we are asking for. And again, with me, even though I don't think it's going to be likely that they will shut it down, I'm still someone, like, as a lifelong Muppet fan, and as someone who loves Muppet Vision 3D, and again considers it one of my favorite attractions, I don't want to see this go. So that's the only thing that I'm only asking from Disney. Like, I know with my podcast, like, it's not really that big, and I'm still considered a relatively small YouTuber, but I'm just asking Disney, if you're ever listening, just tell us what you're going to do with Muppet Vision 3D. Let us know that if the ride is going to be safe, and let us know where you're going to put Monsters, Inc. Because I'm just saying right now, I am definitely not opposed to the Monsters, Inc. area. Like, definitely go and build it. I think it's going to be an excellent idea. I think it's going to be great. And I think you're going to nail it when you're going to release it. But please let us know what you're going to do or where you're going to place it. And please don't replace Muppet Vision 3D, especially with the fact that it's the only piece of Muppet history that we do have in the theme parks, or the only Muppet representation that we have in the theme parks. And for me, it would just be absolutely heartbreaking if you would just go and take that away. So I just want to go and express that. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to go and ask you all, what do you all think about the Muppet Vision 3D rumors? Do you guys believe that it might actually be the case? Do you think it might shut down? Or do you think it is so far safe? Let me know what you think. All right, now, cross my heart, I am concerned for Muppet Vision 3D, but all since I do believe it's a rumor and nothing but that. Heck, I know they still care for it, considering your look back said they recently refurbished it with new seats and effects. That was less than a year ago. Even my sense of anxiety is taking over that will possibly do that, but I guarantee that it will all be okay. It's all just a wait and see. But for real, one person's idea is to switch places with Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor with Muppet Vision at the Magic Kingdom. I don't know, like I could see where you're going with it, but I don't know if I could see Muppet Vision 3D at Tomorrowland. Well, then again, I mean, it wouldn't be a terrible idea, considering that, you know, like, you can make, like, with Tomorrowland, you can make it all themed to, like, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker's Lab and stuff like that. So maybe there could be an idea. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see now. This feels like a wish on a monkey's paw. Everyone and their mother wanted a roller coaster based on the Monsters Inc. door vault, but we didn't know that this might be the price. Considering how the Muppet Vision 3D was one of the final performances of Jim Henson as Kermit, and a stepping stone in Disney buying the Muppets, it's like destroying history. Tearing down Muppet Vision 3D is like tearing down Mount Rushmore. It's like tearing down Mount Rushmore. I was about to do a hiccup while I was talking. Anyways, while I will admit when I first heard about this news, I was concerned about Muppet Vision 3D, but I do think it could be fine, considering how the area where Muppet Vision 3D is located is too small, and not to mention with how much of a fan-favorite attraction it is, with it being one of Jim Henson's last projects. If Disney would get rid of it, it would prove how Disney doesn't care about the Muppets. Yeah, you're telling me, dude. Anyways, I'm really hoping that Disney isn't going to close down both Muppet Vision 3D and Rock and Roller Coaster, because not only they're both beloved attractions, but also play a part in a lot of people's childhoods. I'm glad we're seeing a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride style movement where people come together to save the ride. If they're going to put a Monsters Inc. land, put it in Launch Bay. No one cares about that anymore. Well, I don't know if I would say a Mr. Toad Ride style movement, because, yeah, people really did get upset during that time, but that still didn't change that Disney removed Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in favor of Winnie the Pooh. So I'm hoping that it won't be like that, where there's going to be a lot of protests and outrage, but Disney is still going to do it anyways. So I'm just hoping that it's not the case right there. I think I'm going to go and read one more comment, and then that'll be it from here. I'm still trying to process D23. I met Bob Iger, Kevin Feige, Jon Favreau, Warren Spector, Pete Docter, Bill Farmer, Miley Cyrus, and some content creators I adore. I really hope I'll experience Muppet Vision 3D for the first time next week at Walt Disney World. The Muppets is strong with my family, especially with my father. Oh, dang, that is actually really awesome. And yeah, well, I mean, if you're going next week, then it is for sure you're going to see Muppet Vision 3D. And with that said, that's going to do it for this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Once again, I want to give out a huge thanks to Chris Cook and Unscrewed for sponsoring this episode. And also, if you guys enjoyed your time here at AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, then don't forget to go and subscribe to the AniMat Live Twitch channel and the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. At the same time, if you are listening to this on whatever podcast service you're listening to, then don't forget to go and listen to me, or to go and follow on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon and probably several others as well. And don't forget to go and tune in for more crazy stories that we'll be talking about here on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. So with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.